Welcome everyone. In the last 3 lectures, I discussed about simple harmonic motion of different systems for the mechanical system and for the electrical oscillators. I told you in the previous lectures that those cases are the examples of some idealized systems. Why idealized? Because we assumed a frictionless surface for the spring mass system, and for the electrical oscillator, that is for the LC circuit, we considered that there is no resistance in the circuit. In this lecture, I will discuss about the damped oscillation and forced oscillation. If you just attach a ball at the end of a string or a thread and then start swinging back and forth in air, you will see that this oscillating system is not ideal. After we set the ball in motion, you can see that the amplitude of oscillation steadily reduces and the ball eventually comes to rest. This is because there are dissipative forces acting and the system steadily loses energy. The ball will experience a frictional force as it moves through the air. So we can say that this motion is damped, and such damped oscillations are the subject of discussion in this part. Basically, all real oscillating systems are subject to damping forces and will cease to oscillate if energy is not fed back into them. So the damped harmonic motion is harmonic motion with a frictional or drag force. Consequently, the mechanical energy of the system diminishes in time and the motion is said to be damped. This is basically an example of a damped mechanical oscillator showing an oscillating mass immersed in a viscous fluid. And this is the variation of amplitude with time, illustrating the decay in amplitude of a damped harmonic oscillator. Now, an interesting example of the use of damping is the London Millennium Footbridge. It initially opened in June 2000. After opening, pedestrians experienced an alarming swing motion. On its opening day, the bridge was then closed for almost 2 years. Finally, the vibration and the resonance was controlled by retrofitting 37 viscous fluid dampers to dissipate energy. So, if the damping is large, it is no longer resembles simple harmonic motion. Basically, there are 3 situations. The first one is under damping. There are a few small oscillations before the oscillator comes to rest. The second one is critical damping. This is the fastest way to get to equilibrium. And the third one is over damping. The system is slowed so much that it takes a long time to get to equilibrium. So, this graph shows the variation of amplitude with time. The yellow graph shows the under damping case, the red one is highlighting the critical damping case, and the green one shows the over damping case. So, like the London Footbridge, we use dampings in automobiles in shock absorbers to control unwanted spring motion. Shock absorbers basically slow down and reduce the magnitude of vibratory motions by tuning the kinetic energy of suspension movement into heat energy. Nevertheless, damping is unwanted in clocks and watches as we need an ideal harmonic motion to accurately track the time. Let's consider a damped harmonic oscillator similar as the previous picture, that is, the mass is immersed in a viscous fluid. So, when the object moves through a viscous fluid, it experiences a frictional force. This force basically dampens the motion. You know that the higher the velocity, the greater the frictional force. You can think about driving a car. When the car travels faster, the frictional force increases, thereby reducing the fuel economy. The damping force, that is the retarding force acting on the mass, is proportional to its velocity v, as long as the velocity is not too large. So we can say here the retarding force R is equals to minus B into V, where B is the damping coefficient, and you know that the restoring force, that is F, is equals to minus K into X, where K is the spring constant and here X is the displacement. Now, using Newton's second law, that is the total force is equals to mass into acceleration, here the total force is equals to minus Kx minus BV, and that is equals to mass into acceleration. So you can rewrite this expression and you can say that minus kx minus b into dx by dt is equals to m into d2x by dt2, as you know that v is equals to the first derivative of displacement with respect to time and acceleration is the second derivative of displacement with respect to time. So when the retarding force is small compared with the maximum restoring force, that is when B is small, the solution to the above equation is x is equals to a into e to the power minus b by 2m into t cos omega t plus phi, where omega, that is the angular frequency, is equals to root over k by m minus b by 2m whole square. So when the retarding force is small, the oscillatory character of the motion is preserved, but the amplitude decreases in time, with the result that is the motion ultimately ceases. Any system that behaves in this way is known as a damped oscillator. So the angular frequency of this damped oscillator is equals to root over omega 0 square minus b by 2m whole square, where you can say that this omega 0 is equals to root over k by m, and this omega 0 represents the angular frequency in the absence of a retarding force, that is the case of an undamped oscillator, and is called the natural frequency of the system. And this figure shows the variation of amplitude with time, illustrating the decay in amplitude of a damped harmonic oscillator. And this green dotted line represents the exponential term, which forms an envelope for the oscillations. And here A is the maximum amplitude at t is equals to 0. Here I will discuss about forced oscillation. So far we have discussed about free oscillations, where a system is disturbed from rest and then oscillates about its equilibrium position and steadily decreases amplitude. We now turn our attention to forced oscillation. So what do we mean by forced oscillation? In forced oscillation, we apply a periodic driving force to the system. We are surrounded by examples of such forced oscillations, for instance, playground swing. So basically, we give a push to the playground swing at irregular intervals to sustain its motion. In a pendulum clock, the escapement mechanism gives regular impulses to the pendulum. Now, on a much larger scale, the moon exerts a gravitational pull that exerts a periodic driving force on the oceans of the earth that strongly influences their tidal motion. So what you see here, that the forced vibration occur when there is a periodic driving force. This force may or may not have the same period as the natural frequency of the system. If the frequency is the same as the natural frequency, the amplitude becomes quite large, and this is called resonance. The sharpness of the resonant peak depends on the damping. If the damping is small, it can be quite sharp. If the damping is large, then it is less sharp. Now, besides the examples I just told you, these features of driven harmonic oscillators apply to a huge variety of systems. For instance, when you tune a radio, you are adjusting its resonant frequency so that it only oscillates to the desired station's broadcast frequency. The more selective the radio is in discriminating between stations, the smaller its damping. So here in this footage, this is a footage of the old Tacoma Narrow Bridge collapsing. The Tacoma Narrow Bridge in Washington state collapsed in 1940. Heavy crosswinds drove the bridge into oscillations at its resonant frequency. When support cables broke loose, damping decreased and started to slip over the towers, allowing increasingly greater amplitudes until the structure failed. So now we will discuss about the damped electrical oscillations. So this figure actually shows an example of damped electrical oscillation. So it is actually an LCS circuit consisting of an inductor L, a capacitor C, and a resistor R connected in series. You can see here that there is resistance in the circuit. In the mechanical example of a mass moving through the fluid, we saw that the viscous fluid offered a resistance that damped the motion. In this case, that is for the case of an electrical oscillator, it is the resistance in the circuit that impedes the flow of the current. So here, similar like the LC circuit, we can write that L di by dt plus Q by C, and then we have to add this extra term, that is I into R, and this is because of this resistance in the circuit, and this is equals to 0. So we can write this expression and we can say that L d2q by dt2 plus R into dq by dt plus q by c is equals to 0, and I is equals to basically dq by dt, and that's why this dq by dt. So now if we compare this equation with the mechanical case, that is for the mass immersed in a viscous fluid, and that time the equation of the motion was m d2x by dt2 plus b into dx by dt plus kx is equals to 0. So these two equations are basically similar, so you can expect that the solution will be also identical. So here the solution q will be equals to q max into e to the power minus r by 2l into t cos omega t, where q max is the maximum charge stored in the capacitor. And this graph shows the variation of amplitude with time, and this green dotted line is actually the exponential decay, and this is the envelope of the oscillations, and q max is the maximum charge at t is equals to 0, that is when time t is equals to 0, the maximum charge stored in the capacitor, and omega is equals to root over 1 by lc minus r by 2l whole square. So now if you remember that we had already discussed about three situations, that is underdamping, critical damping and overdamping. So there actually exists a critical resistance value above which no oscillations will occur. So that means omega will be equals to 0, and this term 1 by lc minus r by 2l whole square will be equals to 0. So you can get the critical resistance that will be equals to root over 4l by c. So a system with R is equals to RC is said to be critically damped. When this R exceeds the RC, that is the critical resistance, the system is said to be overdamped. So this figure actually shows the damping case or the underdamping case, and here you can find a few small oscillations before the oscillator comes to rest. And when RC is equals to root over 4L by C, that time you can expect that this will be the fastest way to get to the equilibrium. And this graph actually shows the overdamping case, and here RC is actually greater than root over 4L by C, and the system is slowed so much that it takes a long time to get to the equilibrium. So now if we compare the electrical oscillator with the mechanical oscillator, this is the differential equation for the electrical oscillator and this is the differential equation for the mechanical oscillator. So basically both are kind of identical. So if you compare these two equations, so you can say that the charge is actually equivalent to the position, the current is actually equivalent to the velocity, the potential difference is actually equivalent to the force, the resistance is equivalent to the viscous damping coefficient, that is the B. The capacitance in this LCS circuit is equivalent to 1 by K, where K is the spring constant, and the inductance, that is the L, is equivalent to the mass of the system. So d2q by dt2 is actually equivalent to the acceleration of the system, and current, that is dq by dt, is actually equivalent to the velocity, that is dx by dt. The energy in this LCS circuit has two components. So one is UL, that is the energy stored in the inductor, and that is equals to half Li square, and the energy stored in the capacitor, that is equals to Q max square divided by 2C. And for the mechanical oscillator, there is kinetic energy, that is half mv square, and potential energy, that is half kx square. So there are some important terms associated with damped harmonic motion. One is logarithmic decrement. So logarithmic decrement measures the rate at which the amplitude of the oscillatory motion decay. So it is actually a measure of the decrease. This graph actually shows the variation of amplitude with time. So let's consider 2 points P1 and P2. This P1 and P2 be the two successive maxima corresponding to the amplitude, and say these are xn and xn plus 1, and these are actually separated by a time period, and that is equals to 2 pi by omega. If the maximum P1 is occurring at T1 is equals to T, and then P2 will occur at T2 is equals to T plus 2 pi by omega, then you can say this logarithmic decrement is actually equals to natural log of xn divided by xn plus 1. So from our previous discussion, you know that this amplitude, that is xn, is equals to a into e to the power minus b by 2m into t cos omega t plus phi, and xn plus 1 is equals to a into e to the power minus b by 2m, and in this case time is equals to basically t plus capital T, where capital T is the time period, and then cos omega t plus phi. So then by replacing these two in this equation, you can get this delta, that is the logarithmic decrement, is equals to ln minus e to the power minus b by 2m into capital T. So then delta will be equals to b by 2m into t. Another important term is relaxation time. The relaxation time is a measure of time during which the amplitude of an oscillatory motion decay to 1 by e to its initial value. And we can express this relaxation time by tau, or we can say that the time during which the energy of an oscillatory motion decays to 1 by e of its initial value. So now if we ignore that cost term and if we concentrate only on the amplitude of the oscillatory motion, so we can say that this x is equals to basically a into e to the power minus b by 2m into small t, and by definition at t is equals to tau a, that is the relaxation time, this x will be equals to a by e. So if we compare these two, so that will be a into e to the power minus 1 is equals to a into e to the power minus b by 2m into tau. So we can get tau is equals to 2m by b. You already know that the logarithmic decrement delta is equals to b by 2m into t. Here that this t is the time period, and now you have tau is equals to 2m by b. This is the relaxation time, and if you replace this 2m by b in this expression by tau, you can get that delta is equals to capital T by tau, and this tau is the relaxation time and this t is the time period. An important factor in an oscillator is quality factor, and that we represent by Q. The quality factor actually measures the quality of the oscillator, less the losses due to the damping, more the quality. It is actually called the figure of merit, and it is defined as 2 pi into the energy stored in the damped harmonic oscillator to the energy loss per cycle. So you can say that Q is equals to 2 pi into E by minus dE. So that is basically equivalent to this 2 pi into energy stored and divided by the energy loss per cycle. So now E is equals to E0 into e to the power minus b by 2m into small t. This t is the time. D is equals to minus E0 b by 2m e to the power minus b by 2m into t into dt. Now this dt is actually a cycle of the oscillation. So then you can replace this dt with capital T, that is the time period of the oscillation. So now if you use this formula, you can get Q, that is the quality factor, will be equals to 2 pi into 2m by bt. Here t is the time period, and this will be equals to 2m omega by b, as omega is equals to 2 pi by t. T is the time period. Now we will talk about an example of damping, that is the eddy current. When a magnetic field moves through a conductor, the movement induces an eddy current in the conductor. If you see this diagram, it shows a metal sheet that is written here as C moving to the right under a stationary magnet. The magnetic field B, shown by green arrows, of the magnet's north pole N passes down through the sheet. Since the metal is moving, the magnetic flux through a given area of the sheet is changing. In the part of the sheet moving under the leading edge of the magnetic field through a given point on the sheet is increasing as it gets nearer to the magnet. So that means dB by dt is greater than 0. And now from Faraday's law of the induction, this creates a circular electric field in the sheet in a counterclockwise direction around the magnetic field lines. This field induces a counterclockwise flow of electric current in the sheet, and this is actually shown in red color. So this is the eddy current. In the part of the sheet under the trailing edge of the magnet, that is actually this one, the magnetic field through a given point on the sheet is decreasing as it moving further away from the magnet. And in this case, dB by dt is less than 0. And this is actually inducing a second eddy current in a clockwise direction in the sheet. Now, the flow of electrons in the conductor immediately creates an opposing magnetic field, which results in damping of the magnet and produces heat inside the conductor, similar to the heat built up inside a power cord during use. The amount of energy transferred to the conductor in the form of heat is equal to the change in kinetic energy lost by the magnet. The greater the loss of kinetic energy of the magnet, the greater the heat built up in the conductor and more forceful the damping effect. Here we are going to discuss about the application of the eddy current. As I have discussed that eddy current results in damping of the magnet, the braking system of many subway and rapid transit cars make use of the electromagnetic induction and eddy current. An electromagnet attached to the train is positioned near the steel rails. Now, during braking, the metal wheels are exposed to a magnetic field from the electromagnet, generating eddy current in the wheels. This eddy current is formed by the movement of the wheels. So, by Lenz's law, the magnetic field formed by the eddy current will oppose its cause. Therefore, the wheel will face a force opposing the initial movement of the wheel. The faster the wheels are spinning, the stronger the effect, meaning that as the train slows, the braking force is reduced, producing a smooth stopping motion. Also, as a safety measure, some power tools use eddy currents to stop rapidly spinning blades once the device is turned off. So that's all for today, and in the next class